session 6. In this session, we're going to talk about how you can edit layers, whether they are existing or new layers. To edit an existing layer, we're going to be choosing the ice core data layer for this example. The ice core data layer is nested within the glaciology layer group. You'll notice that this glaciology ice core layer is a point vector layer. I'm going to edit it assuming that I went out to the field and collected an additional ice core, and I want to add that ice core location to this existing data set. In order to edit this data layer, we first need to toggle editing on, and that is what this little pencil button is for. When you hover your mouse over it, you'll see that it's called toggle editing. Make sure that your ice core layer is highlighted by clicking on it in the Layers panel. Then, go to the digitizing toolbar and click on the toggle editing button. When I do this, it's going to turn on editing capabilities for that layer, and as a result, a lot of different other buttons in that toolbar are now going to be accessible. Let's pretend that I went out into the field and collected another ice core, and I want to add this ice core location to its dataset. I'm going to select the button in this toolbar called Add Point Feature. When you click on this button, your mouse icon should now have a crosshair symbol. Move your mouse to the location where the ice core was taken. Let's say I took it here in the northwest corner of Greenland. When you click, you're clicking on the location of that new ice core at that new point. Before it actually makes it appear on the map, it's first going to ask you to populate the record for that point in the attribute table. This window asks you to fill out all of these different fields, which can be possible attributes for this new record in the table. As you can see, every one of these ice cores has different fields and different attributes. So for example, if you know when you went into the field and collected that ice core, that is something that would go here in the timestamp. You can also give it a name, a description, and so on. Fill in the attribute table by writing in the name. I'm going to call it New Ice Core. Once you finish adding in your attributes, click OK. Once you do this, the new location should pop up on the map. You should be able to open up the attribute table for this ice core layer by right-clicking on it and selecting Open Attribute Table. The new record will be in this attribute table. What happens if you want to delete a feature that you just added? Let's say we made a mistake with our first point and we just wanted to delete it. We need to access the selection toolbar. I'm going to double check that my selection toolbar is toggled on. Next, I'm going to select the first button here called Select Features by Area or Single Click. I'm going to draw a small box around that point that I just added to highlight it. Then I can just hit delete on my keyboard and that will take the point away. If you want to save any edits that you have made to a layer, make sure you hit the Save button in the digitizing toolbar before you toggle edits off. For the sake of this tutorial, I will not be saving my edits. I'm going to go ahead and toggle editing off. It will ask me if I want to save, and I'm going to say no. Just as a reminder that the data package you have downloaded is all yours, so whatever edits you make don't change everyone else's project file. The nice thing is that if you end up overwriting your QGreenland project file on your computer, you can always go back to the QGreenland website and download another package in its original form. The next thing we're going to do is create a new data layer from scratch. Let's pretend that I am going to use QGreenland to map out some new study sites and places that I want to go to collect new data. This means I have to create an entirely new dataset from scratch in QGreenland. To do this, I'm going to toggle off the ice cores layer, then toggle on the Manage Layers toolbar. The toolbar we want is called the Data Source Manager toolbar. In our Data Source Manager toolbar, there's a button that looks like a little V with little line segments connected by nodes. If you hover over it, it says New Shapefile Layer, and go ahead and click that on, and you should get a window that looks a lot like the one on my screen. This is going to ask you to develop or to name your layer, and then fill out the layer attribute table before it actually lets you put points or new lines or whatever it is onto your map. In this case, you can give your new shapefile layer a name. For this tutorial, I'm going to call it Study Sites. I'm creating a new shapefile layer, which is a vector layer type. And since I just tend to be interested in locations, I'm going to make this a point layer. This added additional dimensions, which allows you to add things, like if your new data you're creating has elevations, for example, you might want to add a Z value. I'm going to make sure that this new layer is in the same coordinate reference system as the QGreenland project, which is EPSG 3413, or Sea Ice Polar Stereographic North Projection. Each record we will create will have different features or attributes. For example, I want each study site to have a name. So I'm going to actually call one of my attributes names. Since names are a text data, I'm going to leave it as text data or string data. This length parameter dictates how large the space in that attribute table will be. I don't think I will need to add characters for that, so I'm going to make that 30. Once I have that attribute all filled out, I can click Add to Fields List, and it will show up down here in this box called Fields List. This helps me keep track of all the different attributes that I'm going to be adding to our attribute table. I may want to also add the number of ice cores I'm going to collect at each particular site. Be sure to outline all of the main characteristics for this new layer. Once you have outlined all your main characteristics, go ahead and click OK. You'll notice in the Layers panel that the new layer you just created will show up. Mine shows up with the name I've given it called Study Sites. You'll notice that it showed up within the glaciology layer group. This is because I had this layer group highlighted when I created my new layer. Now let's add some data to this layer. This process is very similar to how we edit existing layers, because it is now an existing layer. Make sure that your layer is highlighted in the Layers panel. Next, we go up to our Digitizing toolbar and click the Toggle Editing button on to turn on editing for this layer. I can then click Add Point Feature button in the same toolbar, and that will give me the little crosshairs for my mouse icon. Now I can start adding points. In this case, because I added that main feature in my attribute table, it's going to ask me to add the name and the attributes I filled out earlier for this layer. Once you fill this out, press OK. Once you have added all of your data points, you want to save it once you're done by clicking on the Save Layer Edits. Then you can toggle off editing once you're done. If you want to remove layers from your layer panel, it is pretty easy. To do this, right-click on the layer you want to delete. For me, it will be the new study site layer I just made, and it gives me an option here to remove that layer. That is how you both edit an existing layer or create a new layer from scratch. Go ahead to the next session to learn how to create a map for printer publication.